Welcome back to Hunt the Season podcast. Yes, formerly known as Backcountry PA podcast. Obviously, if you're not following along, we rebranded to combine Drawback and Backcountry PA podcast together to have one YouTube channel where all the hunts get posted. We still have two Instagram accounts, Hunt the Season podcast account, which I run, and then you have Hunt the Season, the main page where all the YouTube, the reels, all that kind of good stuff get posted. Most of the podcast stuff gets posted to Hunt the Season podcast page on Instagram. But on this episode here, we are continuing the Woodsmanship series. This one's with Austin Stone. This one we cover wind, thermals, and bedding. We get really into the nitty-gritty of it because this is one that I really am into because this time frame when we were recording this, it was around the time when I went out and scouted and I found a really nice bed, I think one of the bucks that I'm after, along with multiple other beds that I found too in the same area. Bunch of rubs, the location, you're going to have to play the thermals and the wind right to get in there, so we really wanted to talk about what the wind and thermals mean on this episode, along with how you hunt bedding and what he has seen from the areas that he hunts. Like hunting the hills, he finds out where they bed more consistently at for certain winds and thermals, so we really dive into that. It's a really fun episode. Really, really great guy. Highly recommend going over and following him on IG. Also giving us a rating and review on Apple and or Spotify really helps us continue to grow, and we're growing quite a bit right now, which I'm pleasantly happy with. YouTube is growing slowly, so go make sure subscribe over there. We have some cool content coming out this year, some reposts from previous hunts that were primarily on the Drawback channel that we're going to be reposting to our channel. But partners, obviously XOP, OnX, Deer Hunter Synthetic, go get yourself some scrape stuff. I'm going to be heading out actually this weekend here as I'm recording this. It is Friday, August 22nd, and the episode obviously drops on the 25th. So happy Monday to everyone. Hopefully you started the week off strong. Have a good week. Don't let Mondays get you down. But I'm going to go out tomorrow on the 23rd, check some cams, probably refresh some batteries, see if one of my target buck or if I have multiple target buck in the area. Just see what's going on there, because, at the beginning of the summer, we didn't really have a drought. It was raining a ton. And I was like, okay, these buck aren't in the area. When I checked the camera around that time frame, we didn't really have a drought. Now we have had a drought from after the July 4th time frame to now August 22nd. It's rained here and there. It's gotten cooler, but yet still not a ton of water on the ground, which could be beneficial to myself and anyone else who's trying to target a buck who had him pretty much patterned from last year. Probably will be doing close to the same thing just because it's the same type of weather pattern. He probably just shifted just a little bit later. So going to go out, going to check those cameras. I'm planning on checking, I think I can check. I don't want to intrude too much, so I don't want to really bust in there too much. But yet it is about a month and a half till season starts, so I'm not too worried about it. And if you bust them out of their core area, just means it's working and they're going to keep coming back there. But I'm thinking I'm going to be checking at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to try at least 7 or 8 cameras. If I can get back to the one area, if I get in there enough time, I'm going to go back to the one area just to see what's there. I said I wasn't going to go back there to a rifle, but it would be nice to see what's in the area and what's in there. Definitely want to take my pistol with me though, just in case, because bears right now, this would be the time that they're moving, especially when I'm going in the morning. But that's pretty much what I'm going to do. I'm going to freshen up some scrapes, going to put some Deer Hunter Synthetic down and leave that go for the season. And then that's pretty much it for me. Going to be going out with the family to Hershey Park actually on Sunday. That'll be fun. Taking my daughter to Hershey Park for the first time. I haven't been to Hershey Park in a long time. I've been to concerts at Hershey, but not to Hershey Park, just because I went there so much as a kid. I think I kind of got bored of it, and it's the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to go back there, going to check it out, and hopefully she has a good time. Anything else? Let's see. Okay, so partners, Everett's Guns in Dorrance, PA. Go up there, check them out. They have used guns. They have hunting blinds. They have boots. They have Coda Silence camo, all that good stuff. Coda Silence, I love the camo. We're not partnered with them yet. It's in the talks right now, but if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. If it does, that's great. I'm still going to run their stuff no matter what because I like their camo. It's very comfortable, very warm, and you don't have to layer a ton of stuff on to stay warm. And then Deer Age. Right now, the code's still the same, Backcountry PA, all capitals. That'll get you 10% off your entire order, and then that'll also help out the podcast here as well. There's also affiliate links in the description of the podcast. Right now, we have an affiliate code with Coda Silence, with Latitude, and Tidewee down there as well. Make sure you go check them out. Just click on the link. It gives us like 10 cents maybe if you click on it. Helps out a little bit. Just one click is all I ask. That's all I really want from you. But I want to thank you guys for listening, for the support, for continued support, even with the brand change. Really appreciate. Like I said, nothing is really changing other than the name. Everything else is staying the same. Really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Learn some knowledge, get some laughs out of it, and enjoy the conversation. Almost season time, guys. Make sure you shoot your bow. I'm starting to shoot like one arrow like in the morning, one arrow after work, 1 hour, one arrow after dinner, and then one arrow right before I go to sleep or right before it gets dark out at last light, just because you only get one shot in the woods, so why not just practice that way? Pretty much cold shot, you're not going to be able to warm up before that buck or doe walks in. So just take some cold shots, see how you do with that. Usually it's pretty much your best shot, honestly. Although I did have 2 today that were kind of haywire, lost 2 arrows. Not happy about that. Gotta find some more Black Eagle Renegade arrows. But remember, guys, keep hunting, keep fishing, and always enjoy the through process. See ya.
The buck have to be coming into one of these 2 ridges, getting all the scent out of this thick cover. But then now it's like we're talking wind and we're talking thermals and the ravines over further east. So I was like, how much of a draw is that pulling away? Go in and just fuck around and find out.
Yep.
Talk about, you should have filmed yourself. And then
you
have like an advertisement right there. It's so good you can mow in the rain.
That's perfect. That's good.
Every time like something happens, I never have the camera going. Anything that's remotely dangerous, right? I never have the camera going. But then when I come home and like I tell my wife, and I was like, man, I really wish I had the camera going. She's like, that's not the important thing. I was like, yeah, but I'm okay. That's why it's important.
That's why it's important, right? Yeah. Okay, that's why it was great. A few of the funny things I've caught throughout the years, just because my GoPro's still running.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's something I've tried to do is at least have a GoPro running when I'm out doing stuff. Mm-hmm. And I've caught the tripping and falling with the canoe is probably the best one. Like there was no way of describing that story except if it was on camera.
That's so I don't think I told Ethan this yet. Actually, no, I did not tell Ethan this yet. So was it last Monday? I took off work and I was like, you know what, I just want to go scout because I had a conference for a whole week. And I was like, I just want to get out of the house, just not sit on my ass anymore and just go out and walk. Yeah. So I had an area I wanted to go to, went and checked it out. You know, and I got to this one spot. I was like, you know what, that looks like a good rock to sit on. Has 2 trees beside it.
Oh no.
I get up there, you know, I'm like, okay, I want to get to this. I want to work my way down and go zigzag the whole way back out to my bike. Get up on the rock. And of course, I'm not recording. And I hear a rattle.
Oh.
And I'm like, all of a sudden, I got body chills. And I'm like, where's this rattlesnake at?
Yeah.
And I look down in front of me, and I shit you not, the middle of this snake was about this big.
Oh.
Like, it was a massive black rattlesnake. And I'm like, my spring scouting is officially done.
Yep.
As soon as I saw it, I was like, I am done. And this snake, from where I was to where she was, is what I'm guessing, because of how big she was. Like, she was probably going to give birth, and where she was sunbathing at, like, it was like 3 feet. Like, if her head was on top of the rock and not like, but like it was it was a rock like this and then a rock like that. So like she went in between the two rocks. If she was on top of the one that I was on, I guarantee she would have lunged at me, especially if she was a pregnant rattlesnake.
Yeah.
Like, and I have no service. I have nothing. I'm like, I would never see my family. I would never see my friends again.
That's a pretty freaky encounter right there.
Yeah. Yes, it was. And the first time ever encountering a rattlesnake too at that.
Yeah.
Ever. Like even in Clinton County.
Really?
Never.
I was going to say, I've, for all the miles that I've put in and how many states that I've put it in, knock on wood, I've never really come across a rattler. Like, you know, you'll come across your copperheads and your cottonmouths, but I've never actually encountered a rattler out in the wild. So
yeah,
one time it was actually
I remember that one.
It was, you told me to go check out a spot, and it was actually me and my brother. Like, my brother doesn't hunt, but he'll go on walks. He'll go in the woods and everything. But it's like the one time that I go out with my brother to go check a spot that Cody told me to go to, that we found a nest of rattlesnakes. Because we're looking like, hey, like, just be careful. There's probably rattlesnakes somewhere up here. We're up on top of the mountain, and there's flagstone everywhere. So it's perfect habitat for these rattlesnakes. And we get to this one spot, and it's open, it's flat. There's there's rattlesnakes.
There's everywhere.
Freaking everywhere. And I'm looking at this. I was like, dude, there's got to be snakes over there. Like, I could just tell. Like, there's snakes.
Yeah.
And we just like snuck up, looking, and my brother's like, nope. There's one, as it's slithering away. And of course, my brother loves snakes. He always loved, like, if there was a snake in the backyard, he's the first one to run over and pick it up. He didn't care what it was. I mean, usually, down home, it's garter snakes, black rat snakes. He don't care, right? He's held 4 or 5 foot black rat snakes. He's like, look what I got. He's happy as could be. But there was a shed, they shed its skin. He's like, oh, I want it. I want that. But it was like dead center of all the flagstone. And the rattlesnakes are running. He's like, no, that wouldn't be smart, would it? And I was like, you have finally matured enough to not risk your life.
Oh, that would not be smart.
No, but it was cool. We got some videos.
There was a part of me, though, after leaving the woods, after I made it home safely, I was like, I kind of want to go back and catch that snake now. Because there's there's that season.
That's June?
Is that June?
June or July? It's like a whole month.
Oh, is it a month?
Yeah, it's like a month long. I think it's June. I want to say it's June.
I think so.
I could be totally wrong.
Yeah.
Because you need it's actually because you get the permit through the Fish and Boat Commission, not the Game Commission, and you can catch one. Yeah.
Which I feel like if I go back to that spot and she's there, there's going to be probably more than one. Because she's going to give birth to 10, 20. I don't know how many a snake can give birth to, but she was fat. So there's a lot in her.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, so that was my encounter. And that's when I wish I had the camera going. Like, I tried taking a picture afterwards with my DSLR, but I was off the rock and I was looking in. I was like,
what if you doing one of these?
Yeah. The shaking while you're.
Yeah, you're like, when you get too close.
Yeah. So I had to take the easy way out again, because I was like, any way I went out, like, I went down the knob of where all these rubs were going, and I was like, maybe I can make it down over this. But I got to the point and looked down. I was like, that's all rock.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that shit.
They're probably all up in there too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Every rock I passed at the sun was sitting, I was like, But we are not on this episode to talk about rattlesnakes.
No, that's true. It's all point.
Austin, you want to introduce yourself to the listeners, to us? Tell them who you are a little bit and the company you have, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm the owner of Tactical Approach Outdoors. We do whitetail consulting and property management is the business. And actually just getting started this year, I've added a little bit of outfitting out in north central Kansas. That's brand new to the business. I don't even think you and I have talked about that yet. Yeah, that is brand new to the business. I've been working on that pretty hard over the off season. So it's going to be an area where I'm going to be able to run my workshops out of and quite a few other educational events out there, as well as the outfitting and whatnot. So that was a great, awesome property, great relationship with the landowners, lodging on property. It's a really cool spot. So that was a pretty big addition to the company this year. So we've got that going, and I'm primarily and have always primarily been a public land hunter, and I feel like that has given me a different perspective than a lot of guys when it comes to property management and how to lay things out and maybe where to look for hidden movement patterns, and how deer respond to pressure. You know what I mean? I feel like that's something that it's not all about food plots. When you're talking about property management, I feel like the most important parts of the business actually get overshadowed by food plots and other things along those lines. And those are just pieces of the puzzle, because if you don't put those in strategically in preparation for your access and wind direction and being ready for your hunting pressure, those food plots aren't going to help you kill those deer any better anyways. So I feel like the public land knowledge I have gained throughout the years, and all these deer here are public deer. So give me a cool perspective on how deer respond to pressure in ways you can go about killing those deer, with as is property, not making big improvements to it, but also if you wanted to make big improvements, some ways you can do to manipulate movement patterns a little bit and manipulate your access and stand locations and whatnot.
Yeah, that's I completely agree with that, because I think a lot of people, I mean, when we first started into like kind of property management, especially Ethan, like diving in, like I feel like your mind automatically goes to food plots. Like it's like, oh, food plots are king, doesn't matter what's around, it's just food plots here that's going to attract you no matter what. That's 100%. That's everyone's mind goes there.
That's when I first started, that's all it was. I was like, went to Walmart, bought the throw and grow, threw it down. Later found out that is not how you do things.
It's part of the learning.
Antler King is what we bought, the throw and grow.
Yeah, I think you got that when you had the lease.
Yes.
You tried it. Yeah. Yes. But now it's like even like going public land and the private land, you see how deer, if you hunt public land a lot, you see how deer move when you're in, you're like, okay, they go through here. Not thinking about it, I had an encounter with a buck, and the listeners have heard this story probably a few too many.
They hear
times.
A lot of us stories.
They do. Times. We're gonna be those dads that tell the same freaking stories 600 times, and our kids or grandkids are gonna be like, "Listen, I've heard this story 600 times. I get it. Changes every time too." But it's like how the deer will move with the land. There was a tree that fell down on our property. This buck came up. And instead of just following the trail, it was like an ATV trail. Instead of following the trail and just like doing a little hop, no, it came right to me and walked the whole way around it. And I'm like, that he was willing to walk up the hill a little bit, up the mountain, to go around a tree. I mean, it's not a tiny tree; it was a bigger tree. Instead of just walking straight on the flat and hopping over it. So it's like you don't think about that until you see it.
Yeah.
Because even we'd had all those windstorms up north. The last couple of weeks, and trees everywhere. It looks like a tornado actually went through. But there was this one spot where we know the deer come up the mountain onto our property, onto the top of our road, and then cut across. Well, we had a tree fall across that area. First thing I did was get the chainsaw out, and I cut that tree up. I said, no, the deer have been using this for years. I'm not having them change. If I can help it, I cut that tree up, and they still have their path, and they still use it.
That's perfect. Yeah.
It would have been interesting to see what they did with that tree, since they used it for so many years. It would have been interesting to see which way they would have taken, to see if you didn't cut it, just to like do a little test, like just to see which way they would take.
How they've changed. Yeah.
Would they've taken the easier route where they're more visible to your cabin, or would they have taken the longer route where they're covered more?
The problem was, I think the way the tree fell, that was the easy route up to the because it's right on top of the road. It's right. It was an old years ago. I don't know. They logged up there, took a bunch of trees, and when they log, they create these ruts and they just slide the trees down the side of the mountain. Well, it's an old one of them, and the deer at the tree fell across it, and then across it's like a steep. So there would have been no easy way for them at that point. They would have had to go like way around just to get up onto the road.
They went completely off your property then, maybe.
Oh, they would have went way down and never made it up, or however they would have went. So I was like, no, this tree gets cut. The deer use this, and I want them to keep using it. And so I made that. And then you wouldn't think about that, if you have the mindset of just like food plots, only food plots.
Oh yeah.
It's like, no, we're gonna manipulate a few things here.
And going off of that, like the manipulating the land, you can't do that on public. Like you can, so if there's fallen trees, like say fallen like little trees, you can kind of move it and possibly put it in front of a trail if you wanted to. Like that's something you could do. But wind and thermals, and especially bedding, because I really want to hit on bedding in this episode, because like I found some really good beds and I really want to hunt them, but like it's very hard. It's going to be very hard to get in there. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm trying to like figure out the way to get in there during early season, but yet I think this area is more of a rifle late season type area from the sign I found, the amount of deer I saw in the area when I was postseason scouting there. I don't know how off. I think maybe during the rut archery they'll be there, but it's going to be a very hard place to access unless I take like the long way in. But yet I feel like I got to figure out where exactly they're bedding if they're not in there. This one here, it's wind thermals. So I want to hear your definition of what wind and thermals are. So what's your definition of thermals?
How I think of thermals is when the sun is hitting the ground and heating the earth, air's going to rise. And when before the sun rises and after the sun sets, and that the earth cools down, wind drops, air drops, right? Yeah. Those are basically just simplify when the sun heats the earth, air goes up. When the sun is gone and the earth cools, air goes down.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much like if you're hunting the mountains, that's probably the best way to describe it, because I've had multiple encounters with thermals in the mountains, but then in ag country where we're local here, I have not felt thermals at all. Like it's like they're there, but it's not as drastic.
You don't notice it as much because there's no elevation change to show you the change, right? Where because I do a lot of ag hunting where I'm at also, and the flat ground. So what you'll notice is early in the morning, later in the evening, your milkweed and your scent will hug the ground faster, right? It'll stay low and it'll hug the ground, right? Where middle of the day, your milkweed might stay a little high.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you can feel that your scent might stay a little higher than normal, right? So that would be about the main difference with hunting a flat country, and that's where your wind is significantly more important than the thermal if you don't have any terrain change.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where the thermal doesn't have enough of an influence to actually give you an advantage or a disadvantage even. So it just maybe your thermal in the middle of the day stays a little higher, and if a deer gets in tight to you at the wrong spot, maybe you can get lucky and get away with getting a really tight shot on them just because your thermal is staying a little higher than it would first 30 minutes or last 30 minutes,
Yep. And I really want to touch on that, because like I did not know that when I was hunting the mountains and I was first got into hunting the mountains and or hunting in general, like I didn't know what thermals were at all. Like I was like, what are thermals? Like I think not a lot of people, but for me personally, I didn't really think about it. I was like, doesn't matter to me. I'll just play the wind. But thermals play a huge, huge part. I think, would you rather have thermals or wind in your favor?
Thermals. It depends on the terrain. I'll take that. I'll take that back. Okay. It depends on the terrain and where I'm at. If I'm hunting ridges, I'm taking thermals.
Okay.
Because I have actually done a test where a thermal influence will actually outpower a wind until the wind gets up to a certain speed. I have actually done this test with smoke bombs. I've set up this circle because I had a thermal hub that I wanted to test and kind of do a video on. I don't think I've got to edit the video, or I had some footage that didn't work good enough to actually use the video, but I actually did this test for a video in a thermal hub. Was I took a handful of long lasting smoke bombs, and I set them up at different points in this thermal hub where you can tell there's a little bit different, terrain change, and it had a creek running through it, right? And at this time it had running water. So, and I did it in the morning because I had dropping thermals, right? I did that on purpose, that because I wanted that dropping thermal and I was curious about what it would do. So at that point, the creek, and that's particular spot, the creek was running east to west. It was flowing east to west, and I had a and the wind was coming from the west, right? So it was blowing right up the bottom. They were basically going opposite directions, and my smoke consistently ran against the wind with the thermal. It consistently went that way until the wind gusted high enough to just swirl, and that's all it did. Was it just created the swirl in that thermal hub, which is why thermal hubs are so hard to hunt, is because of that swirl, right? That's why they're so difficult, and why deer use them all the time, right?
Yeah.
but I never got a swirl until the wind gusted high enough. So that thermal influence was actually overpowering the wind, right? And I've also hunted used terrain in a certain way where I can use the thermal to help manipulate the wind slightly off to the side. You know what I mean? Yep. Where you can kind of use the terrain to bend the wind, I guess, in a manner of speaking, where you can sit 10 yards this way and the wind blows right to your deer and you get busted. Where you sit 10 yards this way and the wind and thermals drop it off to the side, and you can just barely cheat that wind and shoot that buck. That's what I did to shoot Kansas buck.
Okay.
Right down here in the bottom. That's what happened with him. Was I was hunting this ridge top, and he only showed up with a southern wind. Southern wind I had that day, right? And I went in and had dropping thermals all day because it was a colder day, overcast. So I wasn't going to get a raising thermal till way late in the morning, right? So if I sat up a little bit more to the east on that little knob that I was hunting, that real ridge top, he would have busted me. But I knew kind of the general area. I made a best guess also on where the deer tend to use that, where it come from when they walked up that point. And he used the direction that most of the travel was coming from. And I was set off as to the side, and I had an active spring behind me. It was a little ways behind me, but it had that thermal influence. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it had that thermal influence to help pull my scent behind me and off to the side a little bit. Yeah. And then just down the ridge away from him.
Okay.
So that's where it helped me bend the wind just a little bit. Yeah. Right. And help cheat that wind just enough to get him into shooting range without him knowing I was actually there.
Yeah, that's one thing I think is very interesting. I like to play the water into my hunts. Like, try to, like, have you, with that little spring you were talking about right there where you bent the wind, how big of a spring was it? Was it anything like it was like up to your ankles, or was it like, what was it like?
It was right where the spring came out of the ground. Yeah, I'd say it was ankles, right? Ankle deep. But I only had water for probably 60 to 70 yards. And you know what I mean? So it wasn't a huge spring. Yep. But it was enough of a spring, right? So especially where I'm from out here, we don't have huge springs. Yeah. These are all the springs that I have out here are smaller smaller springs just back in the ridges. So it's like when I find one though, it's a dynamite setup. Every single time I find one out here, because there's so few of them, it's killer.
So the not necessarily the only buck I'm chasing, but there's one particular buck that I would love to shoot, put it that way. I found there's a big scrape, and then 20 yards from that on a main trail, there's a spring like you're talking about. It comes underneath a rock. It goes for maybe, I'm thinking about how far it goes, maybe not even 20 yards. So it comes out of the ground underneath the rock, comes out like it's maybe ankle deep. Like if I walk into it, maybe it gets up to your ankle.
Yeah.
And then it goes down underneath another rock after 20 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yep. As soon as you looked at me, I was like, I know exactly where he's thinking right now.
so in that instance, like it's not near a thermal, it's not near a hub system at all. Like the hub system would be, I don't want to give too much out, to put it that way. I don't want to put out too much about where it's at, but like it's not near a thermal hub at all, but it's on a side hill. There's good trail going up, but there's that primary scrape right there. And there's rubs all around. I found some beds there too, so we can get into that too. But I think I want to talk about this because I really want, for me, I mean, this is selfish of me, but like I really want to
be
learn
selfish.
this.
Be selfish.
Like
fine.
So it's say in the morning, like you go in there, would you set up near that spring? Because if it's only going down 20 yards, how's that going to work? Like, would you want to set up below that spring or above that spring? Like and that scrape right there too. Like I wouldn't want to cross that scrape. I want to think I want to set up below both of that. Right.
So it depends on what you're observing for deer movement and the best setup, right? Because obviously setting up for optimal wind doesn't help you if you're not going to get a shot where you need to get a shot, right? So you've got to figure out how you got to set up where you need to set up to hunt. And then which over that scrape would probably be your dynamite spot. And then what trees are available, right? Because if you're there and the deer come in and it worked, it doesn't help if you get busted before you get a shot.
Yeah.
So that's your catch too. So you know what I mean? So if you've got a good tree with good cover that you can get in, and that's the problem with setting up below a target is your eye level with your target. Now that is the biggest problem with setting up below your target, right? Unless you've got really good cover.
Yeah.
Because then it turns into similar situation of ground hunting, right? Which that's perfect. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you have enough cover, you know?
Yep.
So I plan on even though it's small, it'll still have that cool influence, right? It'll be a cooler valley. It'll be a cooler draw than normal, which might help you with a stronger falling thermal, and maybe a thermal that falls a little bit longer into the morning than normal, right? So that may be something that, even though it's not very big, that's just something that I have found out. So give you an idea, this guy's thermal was behind me and up the ridge a ways, right? So honestly, the water probably ended before it got parallel to my stand, right? But the cool air had enough of an influence by the time it got down to me, right? And that draw had a cooler system where I had a really strong falling thermal.
Yeah.
For that setup, get a good set up, gives you enough cover. Probably near that scrape. That's probably where your best converging movement's going to be, and in a manner that your thermal is going to drop before the deer come in contact to it. You know what I mean? So even if you have to set above it, if your wind will drop beforehand, right, and they're moving just either with you, and you can get a shot on them before that they hit your wind, or even if they move just a slightly above you. You know what I mean? So that's just going to be, I think you're just going to have to get in there and find you a good tree and take you some milkweed and see what it does.
I think
that's my biggest thing is I always carry milkweed with me when I'm scouting.
Oh yeah.
And the wind and thermals may be doing something different than I think they're doing in that particular spot. You know what I mean? That's where I just have to get in there and actually test it, and then I can go from there. You know what I mean?
The hard part about this spot, the more I think about it, it's hard to hunt the spot because with that spring right there, the beds I found are below that spring and below that scrape. Okay. So to get in there, and it's on like a little bench too.
Yep.
It's almost like I would have to. Now I found the trail that goes by this scrape goes up the hill, but then there's another trail that comes down, like it splits off into a Y. So there's one trail that comes down and it splits off into a Y and goes down two different sides.
Okay.
Now on both these sides, I found two sheds.
Okay.
So I think they're just using both trails depending on maybe the wind or just depending on, in my mind also, it's like, okay, one might be a trail where they go up. One trail might be where they come down. Now I only have camera over obviously that scrape, but I'm like, I should have put it at where I should have put one also where the intersection is of those two. I should have done that. But like in my mind, it's like those cameras would be too close then. Cause like 20 yards apart. I'm like, that's in my mind. It's like, that's way too close to put a camera.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And in that spot, you're going to have to really pay attention to the weather too. So I feel like if it's like you were saying earlier, like cooler with the spring, if it's a cooler overcast day, you're obviously going to want to be below that spring, but then you have those beds. Like you want to talk about danger close. Like this is going to be, you're going to be like in it.
I'm going to have to literally go like commando style here and just like
army crawl a mile to get in or something.
Yeah.
Stupid.
When we killed Osama bin Laden, where I'm just going to have to just SEAL Team 6 and just like
get in there. What you gonna do?
Ghillie suit and all, dude. Like, this thing is, I mean, the beds, I'm like, it makes sense these beds are here. Like when I found them, like it's not in thick cover, it's nothing like that, but just like they have everything in their favor. Like everything's at their back. Like if these bucks bed right there, they have the scrape to their back, and that spring, they're going to literally smell everything that's coming down that mountain.
Yep. And I guess that would be, so is the Y in the trail down the ridge from that scrape? So are you traveling up the ridge or down the ridge?
We're
close to the bedding, basically.
The scrape is above the beds.
Okay.
And then the Y is above that. So
okay, so it's even higher up the ridge.
Yes. So that's the thing. Like it's almost like I would have to drop off the top of the mountain to get to there, but then also with the wind, like I would have to be having a hard wind out of the south. To even get in there.
Yeah.
Where thermal's rising. A south wind with thermals rising.
On a hot day.
Oh. But then again, I don't know where he would bed then at that point. Like where he might not even bed there.
True.
What direction is that draw going? Like for wind. Say if you're playing straight wind, what direction would blow straight down the draw with the terrain?
It would go if it was blowing straight down, it would go north to south.
Okay.
From the north.
So it's a straight north and south ridge. Okay.
North,
how steep is the terrain?
It gets steep when you get towards like
the bedding.
When you get
deeper?
No. So the bedding is actually it's just rocky, put it that way. It's rocky, hard access type stuff. That kind of thickness. When you go up towards the top, it gets steeper. So I follow the one trail that came to the Y. I followed that the whole way up, and then I started losing it because it got like little trees here and there. It rocky and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I don't know where this trail goes. Like it's almost like it ends up there, then they just disperse to go random directions. So I'm thinking they bed near the top right there. Or they just drop off the top. I don't know. Like this is a whole bunch of ifs
for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
But most of my experience with that has been, I find the deer bed along that top third, right? That's good. That's like the majority of the bedding area, right? Where they got consistent wind, and especially with the thermals during the middle of the day, right? They're rising and coming in their favor, and then they'll drop down and move along the bottom side of the top third, right?
Okay.
So you'll find your kill trails, the really heavy trails and the heavily beat up scrape lines and rub lines and whatnot. I found those to be on the bottom side of that top third and on the bottom side of the bedding. That's typically where I found the majority of my daytime bedding is along that top third. So if you're coming up from the bottom and you're hunting below or on that scrape, a lot of times your wind is going to be going the opposite direction of their daytime bedding.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Now that's still dependent on your specific area, because like if your deer are doing something different, I have run into areas in Kentucky where the terrain's just funky and the deer are just kind of using it willy-nilly, and there's bench after bench after bench, and it's just kind of a funky spot, right? But for the most part, I found that that's typically the pattern per se, right? Is the bedding along that top third, especially if you've got some thick spots up there. And then that's the consistent bedding. And then you've got your bottom side of the top third with your scrapes, right? And that's what I like to hunt.
The bottom third.
So yeah. So no, the bottom side of the top third.
Yeah.
The bottom side of the top third.
Right.
That's because once you start going lower than that, you're dealing with a lot of swirling winds.
Yeah.
And a lot of funny terrain and whatnot. But I like using the bottoms for access if I can.
Yeah.
Because if I'm accessing in the morning before daylight and I'm leaving after dark, I've got that falling thermal in my favor the whole way, both directions.
Yeah.
Right.
That makes,
walking up. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense, because where I found this, it would be more of an evening spot to hunt then. From what you just stated, it would kind of make sense to maybe hunt that more in the evening but then I would have to go in there as the thermals start to switch. So I wouldn't want them to smell me if they're up on the top third.
Yes. And it depends on the wind direction also. Yeah. Because if the wind is blowing down that draw and away from your bed, even with rising thermals, it's just going to go straight up, essentially. Yep. You see what I'm saying? It's not just going to funnel up the ridge against the wind. The wind is still going to be blowing that direction. Yeah. So it's just kind of going to send your scent upwards. I mean, that's a tough sit, obviously. If you've got enough distance, you've got enough distance between you and the bed, you can probably make that work with a rising thermal without any issues. And that's one thing I want to hit on. With the correct wind. Yeah. With the correct wind. The thermals. Like in a new hunter's mind, in my mind, when I first started, maybe, I don't know what you're thinking, Ethan, either.
Not much.
Okay. But so thermals aren't just like you just say, they're not going to just like the wind's going. For example, make it real easy. The wind's coming from the south going to the north. You have the evening thermals where they're rising still. All right. Yeah. When it's blowing that way, it's not going to your thermals aren't just going to blow straight up. Yeah. Like it's going to actually rise. Like the when you drop milkweed, and that's what I found after doing milkweed for like the last 2 years, it rises and then you see it slowly start going up. So like, depending on how high you are in a tree, like let's say the average person, when we did the episode of Code of Silence, the average person's up in the tree 14.8 feet. Yep. So if you're up 14.8 feet in the mountains, saying I'm on the bottom, the top third, but at the bottom of the top third. So if I'm up 14 feet, I have until he possibly starts coming down the mountain when he's in the top third. So like he could smell me when he's up in the top third because my thermals start to rise. Now, if he's below that and he's already coming down as the thermals are still rising, he's below my scent.
You go right over top of them.
Yep. And that's so he'll go right underneath my scent because my thermals aren't dropping. Now, let's say it gets to like, I don't know, what time do you think thermals really start dropping in the evening? Like, I mean, obviously it depends on temperature, but like, I don't know, maybe 6 o'clock in the early season.
Unless you have some heavy cloud cover and it's a cold day, you're not going to get dropping thermals until probably the last 30 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is missed in the thermal talk it's the talk is you hunt high in the morning for rising thermals and you hunt low in the evening for dropping thermals. But you don't actually get rising thermals in the morning for a few hours. It might take a few hours before the sun has a chance to heat the ground enough to have rising thermal. And if you're accessing before light, you're sitting there the whole time with a falling thermal. You know what I mean? And then for an evening sit, you're going to have a rising thermal the whole time you're there until that sun goes away.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So I think that's something that's missed when you're talking about the where to hunt with the thermal situation, is that you're not going to get a falling thermal in the evening until that last half an hour, unless you have heavy, dense cloud cover and it's a cold day. Yep. Right. And then maybe you have a spring it to your advantage or something else to help influence that thermal just a little bit more in that spot. And then in the morning, I mean, you're going to have a falling thermal for a long time in the morning, unless it is a hot day. Yeah. Like the sun comes up and it's cooking, and that's the only time you're going to have a really quick rising thermal, you know. And when a lot of times when I'm hunting the ridges, it might not be till 9:30 till I actually have sunlight on me, just because of the positioning I'm at in the ridge, right? The ridge is actually blocking the sun from me. The sun doesn't get high enough on the ground, which means my particular location has not had a chance to warm up yet. Yep. So that's something you need to take, where maybe if I was on the opposite side of the ridge that's covered in sunlight, it might have a rising thermal for an hour longer than I do, right? It all depends on that specific location and when the sun hits it. But until the sun hits that spot, you're not gonna have a hot rising thermal. You know what I mean? Yep. So if you're going in to hunt a morning spot for rising thermal, you're sitting there the whole time with a falling thermal before daylight, you know?
Yeah. Because I actually, I had the perfect example of that this year for when the thermals actually started to rise. So I went into this spot. I waited for the right wind. It was I think it was coming out of the northwest, I want to say. So it was blowing. I was in a hub system. It was blowing northwest to me down the hill, and the thermals were still falling at that point. So I was like, okay, I'm up here. I knew they bedded up on top. I didn't know what was up there, put it that way. I knew they were up on top where they would bedding. And I was like, okay, if they come down here, there's a primary scraper in front of me. Like once those thermals start to twirl in this area, that's when they're going to come here, because they're going to catch everything. And it's like that prime time where it's pre-rut, you know, they're still cruising, checking scrapes, all like scrape week pretty much is what it was. And I could feel the thermal, like the wind was hitting me right in the face. And then all of a sudden it was like 8:15. All of a sudden, like to my back, and like it was like twirling all around me. And then bam, here he comes. Right in. Like it was one of those moments where like everything came together, and it's like, okay, that's what that feels like. It's almost like we can talk about it all we want, right? Like people can hear about all, but once you're actually there and feel the thermals, like thermals have a huge pull. I was up in Clinton County too, and like there's this little draw. It always go up. I made it to the top of the mountain before the sun came up. I got up there, the ground started to warm up, and I was right at the top of the draw, and then the wind, like there was hardly any wind. Then all of a sudden, just right up, all this wind just blew right in my face. I was like, that's weird.
Yeah, what was that?
But then thinking back on it, it's like that was thermals.
Yep,
that's 100% what that was.
Yeah,
because they were falling all night, and then all of a sudden I have all this warm, cold air just boom hitting you right in the face.
Just wham.
Yep. It's crazy. Like sometimes you got to mess up though, just to feel it, just to feel the thermals. Like I would tell anyone 100 out of 100 times, if you never felt thermals before, go just mess up a spot. Like go to a spot you never hunted before, feel thermals for the first time.
Yeah.
It's insane.
No, and that's true, because you hunt it. I've done this. This is part of how I learned how to hunt thermals. Is I set up in a manner of how I thought it was going to work with the wind, right? And I kind of accidentally was successful on purpose, right? If that makes any sense, right? So I thought this is what it was going to do, and it ended up working out better than I even thought it was going to, because of the thermal, right? I set up for the wind, and then the thermal came into play, worked with what I thought the wind was going to do. And I'm like, okay, well, that's very interesting. Or you go, I've also messed up more than enough, because the thermal and wind was doing something that I didn't know it was doing about 80 yards up the ridge, right? So that's something to take into consideration too, because I've found that I set up in a spot to hunt. I got good wind, feel good about what I'm doing, but I keep having something blow at me about 80 yards up. I'm like, why in the world is that thing blowing at me up that direction? That makes no sense. So, and then I go, I get down, like, okay, I've already blown this out. Let's figure it out, right? You take some milkweed and figure it out. And then you figure out that it's actually the wind kind of shifted 50 yards away. Like it's going good. And because of the draw on the thermals, it shifted just a little bit and went up that way. So after messing up some stuff like that, I'm like, I could also use that to my advantage. I got busted because of that. I can use that same idea to my advantage, right? So if you were to, you can use that. Say you've got swirling wind in the bottoms, right? Maybe a way to counteract that is you sit on the downwind side of a point, but close enough to the point where that wind turns and goes up the draw, right? So that this is where it works, because if you set, I'm sure you guys have seen this too, where you set out enough into the middle and it starts to swirl, you get an eddy right there. But if you sit close enough to it, it's a consistent wind going up the draw. Right, you get just inside the eddy, you get just inside of it, tight enough to that point that you actually get a consistent wind, and it's just bent going up that hill, just coming around that point, and you're not quite in the eddy of it all. So you're sitting up just a little bit, and you're shooting down into that eddy because that buck's coming in using the scrape in the swirling wind, and you're just set off to the side of it, right? That's a tough spot I found, because there aren't very many spots where you can get good shooting. And without actually being in the eddy, there's not many places that you can actually get good shooting. So that's typically why I don't hunt those areas. But that is something I have found to happen in areas like that. But I like using that for access. I love accessing through the bottoms, because that falling thermal is very significant and predictable. So it's like that I can always use that to my advantage.
I do want to talk about the draw of these thermals, because I feel like, from what I've experienced, I feel like the morning rise of the thermals is 10 times stronger than like the fall of thermals, because it's a drastic, instantaneously almost change when the ground warms up. It's so much faster coming up than like when it slowly cools down in the evening, and it can slowly work its way down. Like I feel like that morning pull up is so much more, I don't want to say important, but like drastic than the evening.
And that's when I feel like for me, I really only pay a lot of attention to my advantage for a falling thermal. And then once that thermal starts to rise, it's all wind direction for me. So that's just, so if the wind is in my favor, right, that rising thermal doesn't matter, right? If the wind is slightly not in my favor, I can manipulate it with a falling thermal.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's how I like to approach it. My personal, how I like to approach it is I can manipulate that slightly bad wind, marginal wind, with a falling thermal. unless I just go in there for a midday hunt, right?
Mhm.
If I go in for a midday hunt, then yeah, and I hunt high enough, then that rising thermal is going to be a huge advantage for me, right? As long as I hunt high enough, and I don't go in before that thermal starts to rise, that rising thermal is a huge advantage
Yep.
for me. But yeah, I would agree that that's a very strong thermal, is that rising thermal. But I at that point, my mind shifts straight to wind direction once that thermal rises.
As long as you're set up before that thermal rise happens,
Mhm,
I think
mhm.
you're 100% okay. Because like
Yeah.
the when I was about to switch, I had a doe come within 8 yards of me, and she just stared at me. She never looked at me. I mean, she just looked right up. She didn't, as long as I stayed still, she didn't smell me, nothing like that. She even tried to go downwind of me and didn't hear it because the thermals were starting to rise.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so even though the wind was blowing in my face, with the thermals rising, even if it made its way down there eventually, it would have been 20 feet above her head, because I was 10 feet. I was 10 feet, and then she was going down. By that time she got below me, she was 20 feet below me.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's how thermals work.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense to you when I do that?
So now it's my turn to be selfish here. All right.
Go.
Because I stumbled across the spot last archery season, and it's one of those spots. Like, I have no cameras there yet. I've only was there once, and the only reason I know about it because I just said, "Oh, what's here?" and I just walked. Right. So this could either be a dynamite spot or absolute shit. I don't know. I'm going to find out this year.
We don't know till we blow it out, right?
Exactly. Trust me, I will probably ruin this at some point, but
it's guaranteed.
I'm learning. So there's up on top of the mountains, right? Steep. Up on top, they have the basically clear cut. These little skinny little trees everywhere, right? So I'm walking through that, and there's like old logging trails, and there I found scrapes. I mean, one that was as big as this table here. I guess you can kind of see it. As big as this table that was fresh. I was like, okay, they cruise through here, and then there's the trail, faint trail that left I'm just going to call it the bedding, right? Because it's so thick in there. I've jumped doe in this general. I mean, it's a huge area, but I jumped doe in here, left it, and there was a ridge on the side of the mountain. So I was like, okay, this is right outside of thick cover, downwind. It's a east facing mountain side of the mountain. I'm like, all right, then there's rubs. All right, cool. Below that is another ridge that you can't see unless you go literally to the edge, because it's quite a drop. But then at one point I went down there from a different direction, and there is a very faint trail, one rub on a tree, and then there was one scrape that looked like it was used going up the ravine. So I was like, I'm sitting there, the wind's coming straight down. I was like, okay, the buck have to be coming into one of these two ridges, getting all the scent out of this thick cover. But then we're talking thermals. It's pretty steep of a hill, of a mountain. And it's an east, so it's going to get sunlight first thing in the morning. So it's like, even if the wind's coming down, if that warms up, all that's going to go straight up, or lid up in the up direction.
Yep.
So it's like, is that like it? And again, I only was there for an afternoon, really. I set up, didn't see anything that day. So I definitely want to get more history with this spot. But it's like that's probably another one of the spots where I have to really think about access. Because I could make the easy way and just come straight down, but then I'm probably blowing everything out.
Yeah,
I got to go an extra mile around, which I did because I tried to follow the trail, and then it took an extra mile around to get through it. But it's like we're talking wind, and we're talking thermals, and the ravines over further east of that. So I was like, how much of a draw is that pulling away from the ridges? So it's like, now there's too much to think about.
Yeah.
It's like, I just got to go in and just, the old saying, fuck around and find out. Yep. That's just essentially, I feel like that's what I have to do at this point.
I mean, you're with it being east facing, you're like you said, you're definitely going to get, an earlier rising thermal for sure, right? And you might get lucky and have a slightly earlier falling, right? Just on that side, right? And so, and it depends on what you're looking for. I mean, are you expecting to kill your deer coming from the top, or are you expecting to kill your deer coming from the bottom? You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
then it depends. Like if you don't expect really much to come from the bottom, then it doesn't really matter if you have a falling thermal.
Yeah, I'm not
You know what I mean?
because of how steep it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think the deer can come from the bottom, because the rubs in the direction the rubs are facing and the trails are coming, they're coming. So if it's an east facing mountain, the deer are coming from the south and either continuing to the north, or they're cutting up into the thick.
Yeah.
It depends on which ridge, because there's two ridges. And again, if you're on the bottom ridge, this is the top third of the mountain. But if you're on the second ridge and you look up, you can't see the first ridge. It's thick enough. I'm like, yeah, they're not walking up there. Like if they want to get up there, they got to go essentially around it and curve up if they ever want to make it to the second ridge or even the thick cover. But if they're on the first ridge, they can just walk right in.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you don't, especially if they're staying just above the bottom, if they're not walking actually in the bottom, that's where your falling thermal is going to be. You know what I mean? It's going to follow that creek bed. That's why those creek beds are so great to access in, is because it's such a predictable thermal. That's exactly where the thermal is going to end up, is in that rocky, cold creek bed in the bottom, right? So as long as your deer aren't really using that very bottom creek bed, your falling thermal essentially is getting below them before they have a chance to wind you. You know what I mean? And then it depends on your wind. And like you said, on the flip side, because if your wind was blowing kind of crossways to where they were coming in, right? It's kind of blowing away from your mountain. You might be able to get away with them not smelling you anyways, even if you had kind of a funny thermal, that middle ground thermal, before you really have a strong pull up. It won't last very long, but until you get that really strong pull up, as long as your wind is good and you get it, they're just kind of a catty corner to it, you should be fine. I would think so. And then if they're not coming from the bottom, because my ridges that I hunt, I'm not hunting actual mountains. That's the other thing too. So when you guys have in the mountains, you have multiple different, benches and draws and systems in that ridge system, right? Where I'm at, my deer are pretty much, it's one big ridge system, right? It might get a little taller with a couple benches, but for the most part, you've got your top, you got your bench, you got your bottom, right? That's pretty much what I'm hunting here. So I definitely plan on the deer using the bottoms and coming from the bottoms at some point, especially as they're funneling out of the agriculture fields, coming back into the ridges, for the morning movement, coming back into their bedding, unless they circle around. It really just kind of depends on what they're doing. But I need to plan on them using the bottoms at some point. And then it comes to best guess. Not every setup is going to be absolutely perfect. So you set up where in a manner that you expect most of your deer to come from. And then if it's just bad luck at the other time, if they come from where you didn't expect it.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a lot of times that, like, these best spots that you find, they're best spots for a reason, and they always work in the deer's favor. Yep. So all we can do is set up in a manner that we at least put most of the odds in our favor for where we think most of the movement's going to come from, and then we just go from there.
I literally wrote that down as Ethan was talking. I said the best spots have the shit access.
Yeah,
every time. I
mean, I'm just thinking, like, because like the way I accessed it the first time was probably the wrong way.
Dropping off the top.
Literally just dropped it off top because I was walking through basically the clear cut. I was walking right through it. I was like, I didn't have a spot picked out. It was something I wanted to check out. It wasn't anything I was too concerned. I was like, if I jump something, I jumped something. I didn't care at that point. I just wanted to go see what was here.
Yeah.
But then when I left, I went a different way, and I was thinking later when we were talking about access and thinking about it, like after our Ohio trip last season and the crappy way that we took to get to where we ended up setting up for you that one evening, it's like, yeah, this is gonna suck because it adds. I mean, it definitely adds a good extra mile onto my walk into this spot if I so choose to hunt here. But that's probably the only good way that I'm gonna get to. I have no history with this. I found it once, so I don't even know. I know deer use it because I've seen the trail. I've seen the rubs. There was a scrape, like off the bench a little bit that was significantly used, frequently. I mean, we're talking black ends of the tree, so they were licking and rubbing that for a while. But it's like, I'm like dreading it. Like, I really want to go check this out. I really would love to hunt it and see it, but it's like I'm dreading it at the same time. It's like, oh, I really got to do this.
I am that guy at deer camp that if I end up killing something, no one wants to come help me with it because they know it's probably going to be at the worst part of the whole freaking property.
Yep.
Yeah. And you're going to have to cross 3 ridges to get to it. It's going to be about 2.5 miles away.
This spot, I'm thinking like we go up for the rut camp again this year. I think I might, if I shoot my deer, I might have to wait till you are here because Dad's not helping me with this one. He's not gonna. He'll see it and be like, no, you're on your own. I might need you.
Use me as a pack mule, huh?
I seriously, or probably could, or we'll get the tractor. Yeah, just take the tractor back there on public land. I'm like, sorry, we need to get my deer out of here.
We gotta get the deer out.
Oh my god,
I don't understand. It's fine.
There is one thing that I heard that made it was like a aha moment. Now I can't take credit for this. I would love to take credit for this. It was on the Stick Boys podcast with I forget their names. Alan is one of them, and something else. Alan, I believe, said this, but okay. So let's just say you have one hill, goes down to a valley, another hill, and then it goes down to another valley on the other side. Now, if you think about it, not all those areas are going to be rising thermals at the same time. So you have, we'll make it simple here. So you have a south-facing slope that's going to warm up before the north-facing slope. So that south-facing slope is going to be rising, but on that north slope side, it's still going to be falling. So it's pulling all that rising thermals down with it. And then it's going to continue that process the whole way through. So if you have 3 mountains, let's just say, make it real simple for everyone here.
Yes.
Because after this, it's going to make sense. You have 3 hills. All right. That third hill on that north-facing slope is literally could catch all the scent in reality, like if you want to think about it, all the scent from that first south-facing slope the whole way over.
Good.
And that to me was like, ooh, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Like it's not everywhere is going to be rising at the same time. Yeah,
and then that's very true. And then I think it goes there as how what's your distance between your rising and your falling thermal, because if you have a pretty short hot portion of that ridge, I can 100% see something like that happening for sure. And if you have a really long top, I think you're far enough past that. I don't think it worries so much, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then obviously, and then on top of that, like, I mean, if they're close enough together, like you said, like they would have to be like these mountains have to be pretty much like it could almost
rolling.
Be, if you had fingers coming out of like if you had a east and west running ridge, all right, and you had fingers at the very end, and they were all facing like they were pretty close to each other, but you had a south facing slope to a north and quickly this rolling through way. That third one right there, I would want to set up on the back of that third one right there, because that one there, with them being so close together on those fingers with little draws right there, that would be the one to set up on, because it most likely has a bigger drop off, and those thermals won't be rising for a long time. Until it gets to the other side.
Yeah, and then I guess it depends on, because if the sun's not getting to the bottom yet, then it won't rise. Well, once your scent hits the bottom, it's not magically going to the top until that bottom is getting sun. So you would have to have perfectly split in the middle, falling and rising thermal. Your sunlight would have to be hitting the bottom in order for that effect to take hold.
Yeah, and that's why thermals are such like a nerdy thing to like.
Oh yeah,
like it's like, God, like thermals.
Yeah, you
like
really dive into it.
My dad, I don't think my dad doesn't really get into it like I'm into it, but like if I tell him about thermals, like thermals, what if I'm just gonna go hunt this tree?
Yeah,
like, it's a deep dive thing, but like once you get out there and actually like start experiencing it and learning it, like it can help you a lot.
Well, the deer are using it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a straight up fact about it, is the deer are using it. So if my game that I'm after, if what I'm after is using this to their advantage, why the heck would I not want to educate myself as much as I possibly can about it, and either figure out why they're using a location and when, right? Because that's a lot of times what that also does too, is once you take into account wind and thermals, you can actually kind of pinpoint, in a manner of speaking, when a deer is going to use that particular spot, right? So like the leeward side of the ridge, right? That they're going to bed on that leeward side of the ridge. You got wind coming over the top and you're creating that swirl on the backside. Deer are bedding on the leeward side of the ridge and using it more often, right? So if I'm going in to hunt a south wind, it does no good for me to hunt a south-facing slope unless I know for sure I have movement over there, right? The only thing that trumps that is I have visual evidence of them doing this. That trumps everything, right? Because it could be for pressure reasons. They're doing something different, right? Pressure will cause deer to do something slightly different than what they optimally would use an area for conditions. You know what I mean? So if there's pressure on that north side slope significantly more than the south side slope, they're going to use the south side a lot more than the north side because of pressure, even though for wind, it might be more optimal to use, right? Or maybe there's another north facing slope that they're using on private land, which typically is what happens. They're using another slope somewhere else for that wind, right? So that's, unless I have visual evidence of them doing something funky, you can basically pretty much guesstimate when a deer is going to use a specific spot based on the terrain features and the way everything flows, once you really understand how they're going to protect themselves between visual spotting their potential danger, but also smelling. What feeds all of their senses kind of all at once.
I mean, perfect example of all that, using why a deer uses a certain area. Like you look at thermal hubs. Thermal hubs, for example, for anyone who doesn't know, is when you have multiple fingers, it looks like kind of like a wheel spoke, is the best example you can give anyone. But that's not all. Like it doesn't have to have like 5 coming in. It could be, I found thermal hubs where it's like you don't see it on a map, but you'll get there and be like, okay, there's little fingers coming in here, which make this a little thermal hub. Like there's different.
Those are the best ones I found.
Yes. The ones that aren't on a map are the best ones. It's like you got to put a lot of boot time in.
Yeah.
But like once you find one, it's like, okay, this is pretty freaking good right here. But I mean, the one thing I really wanted to touch on here for this Woodsman series was, you said Leeward. So you already defined that, but like Windward. So what's the definition of a Windward side? Because I hear that, and like some people might hear that and be like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to have to refresh me on the definition of that one.
So Windward is, from what I'm taking from it is like the side that the wind's hitting.
Oh,
so like if
okay.
it's a south facing slope, we're gonna stick with south and north facing slopes. It just makes it easy.
Keep it easy.
Yeah, keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yes.
Right? Kiss. So a south facing slope, the wind's coming out of the south. It's hitting that south side. That's the windward side. The leeward side would then be the north side. If I'm thinking that's correct.
Yeah.
Sure. I really wasn't 100%
Yeah,
sure either. So I was like, yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though.
I don't personally use that term much, so I couldn't give you the for sure definition on that. Just because, like I said, I only pay attention to the leeward side of the ridge.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And
Unless I have visual proof, that something else is happening.
Yep.
So you've got your multiple ridge sides set up, and that's where this guy hunting him. He was only using that north facing slope on the southern wind, right? And the slope just across from me on public where I could hunt, he wasn't using. He would never use that location, right? Great north wind hunt because I got the wind in my favor. I'm on the leeward side of that wind, right? It's the leeward side of that ridge. And but he was probably using that north facing slope, or we take that back, a south facing slope on a north wind on the private land on the other side of the fence, right? Where I was on the north side of the ridge hunting the leeward side, that south wind on the public side.
Yep.
Right. So that was the only area that I was finding him to actually be using that particular part of public. And what's funny is that he didn't have the bucks that were using just across the valley from me were a little bit younger bucks, and they weren't coming over to this guy's spot.
Yeah.
So I found that kind of interesting too.
That is, I those mature bucks, man, I feel like they don't want to be around anyone. They're like old hermits, especially when they get old hermits. They like
Grumpy
stay off my land and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like quit mowing my yard, or I'm mowing my, I don't know, something like that. I feel like I'm gonna get there someday.
Get off my lawn.
Get off my lawn, kids.
Oh, that's, man, I've seen that so much. Is sometimes these big mature bucks, if you are trying to target one singular buck, man, if you're out just to kill a deer, you might be hamstringing yourself if you're going after one deer. Because I've found multiple of these big bucks to be where if I choose to hunt this deer, it's going to be an all or nothing hunt. Like I'm going to kill him, or I'm not going to kill anything. Right? And that's a buck I'm chasing right now in Kansas. Been after him for a couple of years. That's essentially what got me in 23. Was he was the only mature buck using this area. He was it. And for whatever reason, it was either he maybe he was aggressive, maybe he was just a loner. I'm not 100% sure because I haven't really figured out his personality per se. But all I know is that there were no other mature bucks using this area other than him, and he was consistent.
Yeah, that's what I found too. Is like when this guy's in the area, it's like no other deer, no other buck I see is in the area. But then like I'll have like a group of 4 that come by, and the one in that group is like extremely aggressive, which I have his shed. And like he chases other ones around, but yet he still sticks around them. So like it's just interesting to me.
Little posse.
It's just very interesting to me of how these buck interact, or like don't interact, like, or how they lay sign. Like I have videos of this one buck, and when he does rubs, he just like slowly like rubs it, doesn't really leave any sign, and he just moves on. Like he doesn't. I only have two pictures of him actually hitting a scrape. That's it. Like being aggressive with a scrape, and then the rest of that is like he just.
Those deer are tough to hunt. The aggressive ones I feel like are actually easier to hunt.
Oh,
they're predictable. You can. It's just they're going to come after you. You know what I mean? You can maybe call them in. I mean, an aggressive deer is going to be significantly easier to hunt than a deer that is continually looking behind him.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, like the one I would love to shoot him, but like this aggressive buck, I would also love to shoot too. Cause like I have pictures of him now with his antlers off, and you can tell, I know it's him because every time he comes to the scrape, his ears are back, and anytime he sees another deer come close to the scrape, he's like running them off.
Jeez.
I'm like, that's him. And I guarantee you, when I was out scouting the one time and I got 20 yards of those deer, the one that was like wanted to like stand there and stare at me was probably him.
Yeah.
Like he's just a very aggressive buck, and I feel like I could maybe, if I get close to where he's at, I can probably call and have him come in.
Yeah, that might be a chance, something to try at least. You know, you never know, because also just because they're aggressive doesn't mean they're dumb. So it's a kind of thing too. Is I feel like they're definitely more predictable in moving during daylight. You know, is kind of, I feel like how I would describe that is that I would expect them to be up and moving and checking those scrapes more often during daylight, and not so afraid of doing that.
And laying down sign too,
and laying sign down, exactly. And because if they're not giving you much sign, you don't have a lot of puzzle pieces to put together. And a deer like that, he's giving me a lot of puzzle pieces that I can really, put together on my OnX. My OnX looks like something.
Oh God, it's this area that I'm in.
I saw his the other day. I was like, how do you see the map?
It's it's like chicken pox on that thing with like all my trails. Like I have each trail a different color now that I walked, and I'm like, for each month that I was out, like in the postseason, I'm like, April's like a green dotted trail, March is a blue, February is like a purple.
Yeah,
I'm like, these are the I'm like, why are you doing this?
That's funny. That's funny.
Well, 70 miles, you got to keep track of it somehow in this one area. Like 70 miles, like in just one area. But hopefully it'll pay off. It'll pay off. Yeah. One of these buck will hit the ground this year.
Yeah. There'll be a dead deer this year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It might be a doe. I don't know.
Yeah. Something's gonna die.
I could get in that air and be like so frustrated after like the first 3 sets, be like, I'm just shooting a doe. I'm shooting a doe out of this area.
That's funny.
Maybe not. I probably won't. I probably won't shoot a doe out of the air. That would ruin the hunt. With how far it is too. Yeah. But that's really all I had. Ethan, do you have anything else for wind and thermals?
I covered my mountain, so we're good.
Okay.
So that's really what I wanted to cover. I was just the topics of winds and thermals is just, it's something that we always talk about, and it is a lot of information, and there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to screw up, so it's just like, we'll just try to figure out, like, it's good to get a general idea of how this stuff works in the simplest form.
Yeah.
And then it's important then to go out, boots on the ground, and be like, okay, I know what it's supposed to do. Let's see if it does it. And if it does something different, then you can be like, okay, why? Why does it do so? And then that's when you can look at the terrain features. You can look at, okay, how fast was the wind going? How
that's what I want to ask.
That's
what I want to ask. Yeah.
When you did your study, do you know how fast that wind was moving when you noticed that it actually shifted the thermals?
I think it was gusting right around 30.
30. Okay, so you need
that's
significant. That was a stiff. That was a stiff wind. So I think when I was getting my gusts, I have to look at my notes again, but if I remember right, it was gusting right around 30. So I had a lot of tree cover, right? So it wasn't just a straight shot for the wind. I'm sure if I didn't have that tree cover, it wouldn't have taken such a high wind speed to get the swirl. I think that may have taken an effect there, but in these ridges like we're doing, we're going to be dealing with a lot of tree cover. So that's just kind of, but yeah, I think it was gusting right around 30 when I was getting my swirls. Everything under that, I mean, it was moving at a pretty good pace, because I walked up the ridge just a little bit just to kind of test it and feel it, and it was moving pretty good for me up the ridge, a consistent speed. And when I got down into that thermal, that water was just shooting it. That falling thermal was just shooting it down the ridge. And it was interesting, because that would actually, if you had running water in that spot would have been so easy to hunt at that point, because you could set up on the down stream side of that thermal that was caked in scrapes and had your scent going right down that thermal the whole time. And it may have been the kind of thing that where if you got too high in the tree, it actually probably would have negatively affected. You know what I mean? So that would have been something to maybe experiment with. Is 25 feet too high where I don't have that pull quite as much as I did at 10? It depends on how much cover I had in the tree. That would have been something to experiment with. I never put a stand up or to test that, but that would have been something that I was kind of thinking of while I was there taking notes. Is obviously the closer I got to that stream, the stronger it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if the higher in the tree I got, maybe I had less of an effect. But I mean, that was just something very interesting to notice, because that spot would have been cake to hunt with that strong of a falling thermal.
Set up on that last scrape there and just wait, like set below that last scrape and just wait.
Oh yeah,
something's gonna come there.
Yeah, it was pulling the ridges system. It was pulling from 3 major ridges, and you had some food plots just upstream from it. So it would have been a tough one to access. I feel like you probably would have had to come down one of the main ridges,
right?
But I think that ridge was one of the least important ridges compared to the other two. From what the sign I was seeing, the sign wasn't as strong up that ridge versus the other 2 ridges. So that I think, just kind of thinking through how that all worked, I think that would have probably been the ridge I would have had to use as my access.
Yeah.
And then gone from there.
Yep.
So and then get to that creek as fast as I can. Basically, that would have been my plan, was to get down and get to that creek as fast as I can, so I can walk the creek kind of the rest of the way in either direction. If I could access from downstream, that would have been even better.
The best thing to do in that situation, and this is brainstorming, like if you had access to one of those properties up on top and say you want to get down below, you start you have like a little fire up on top, like a little bonfire. All right. You have smoke coming down, and you cover yourself with cover that smoke.
Yep.
And you just go down with the smoke.
The whole
that way it's like you're hidden. You're hidden.
Yes. That's fantastic.
And deer don't run away from smoke because it's something they probably smell quite often in the woods.
Natural.
So that's why people, when they smoke in the woods, sometimes they get a big buck.
Yeah.
That's why I'm going to start vaping in the woods. I'm not
No,
vaping.
don't do that.
I don't vape. But
yeah, no. That's a bad habit.
I would not suggest.
No. No, I do not suggest vaping in general.
I actually think.
Go ahead.
I actually think that argument is kind of funny, because people say, I don't pay attention to the wind. I smoke in a tree and I kill big deer. It's like, you probably actually have the wind in your favor, which is why you killed that deer. So it's not that your smoke wasn't actually going in the direction that you didn't know it, but you were actually hunting the wind properly, which is why you killed that deer, not because you were smoking a cigarette and not paying attention to it, but you accidentally were hunting it properly. I just kind of laugh at that argument a little bit, because I'm like, actually, if you were to pay attention to it, you probably were accidentally hunting it perfectly for the wind.
Yep.
You just weren't paying any attention to it.
And it's honestly the best way to know the wind is to be smoking in the tree. So then you know which way the wind's going at all times.
It's funny.
Take up smoking. You'll know which way the wind's going.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, I'm a social smoker.
This podcast is brought to you by Newport.
Oh God, no.
Right?
We don't endorse any of this.
We don't endorse any of it.
Anyway, Austin, where can people go follow you and subscribe, all that kind of good stuff?
That's funny. Yeah, you can follow me. Tactical Approach Outdoors is my handle for everything. So on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. My website is tacticalapproachoutdoors.com. That's so you can get all the information about me, what I do, and watch some good videos. So I'm trying to get my frequency up. I've been so stinking busy over the last year. I haven't had any time actually working the business, and I haven't had any time to edit like I used to and produce these videos. So I've got to get my frequency back up, because I've got all these video ideas, and actually videos I'm kind of produced already. I just haven't had time to actually put them out there. So I need to get that back going, because I actually enjoyed doing YouTube. I think it's fun and whatnot. So but yeah, that's how you can find me on any of the platforms at Tactical Approach Outdoors.
Cool, man. Well, we really appreciate you coming on here, and just we both all nerding out on wind and thermals.
Yep.
I can nerd out easy, man. It takes nothing. As my wife, it's hilarious. I can nerd out anything deer hunting. You get the more technical it is, the better.
Oh yeah, absolutely love it. Remember, everyone, to keep hunting,
keep fishing,
and always enjoy the process. See ya.